Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton with episode number 142. And today I'm giving you a little 2023 personal update as we start the new year. My theme this week was getting my ish back together because I'm going to be honest. I think I dropped a few hints about this over the past few months that I've been stressed out. Life was stressful I'm going to be honest, it hasn't stopped being stressful, but I feel like we're on a new step here. But this winter has been stressful. Nothing specifically particularly awful, which is great. No crisis that was insurmountable. But, I'm just in a life stage where I've been dealing with some family health struggles, not my own health struggles, but close family members who I care a lot about, and some caretaking and some worrying and just a lot of stress on my plate. And in that mix, I went a little bit astray in terms of some of the things that keep me tethered to the way that I like to live around food. Now, I haven't gained a ton of weight. I haven't gone way off plan. Nothing got broken, but I drifted. And what do I mean by drifted? Well, just like I said, there are certain things that for me keep me connected or tethered, right? Give me a line, a anchor into the way that I choose to eat. And we can all choose different tethers. I like the idea of a tether, though. It's what ties you to your good choices. For me, my central tethers have been regularly weighing myself. It is a way that I check in to make sure that the effects of the way that I am eating and living and moving and all those things are within reason, that I'm staying in a range that works for my life and choices at that time. So sometimes that looks like daily. There have been periods of time where daily was important, but generally these days it's a few times a week. Then the next tether that I use is tracking my food. So even if I'm eating more or less or whatever it looks like, tracking my food is a tether that works for me. Now, I'm just fine taking a day off. If there's a day where I'm going out to eat or eating at someone's house or just tired of it all, I'm okay with taking a day off of tracking. It doesn't have any effect. So, because a day off tracking doesn't mean a day of binging, right? And so no biggie, no problem. And even a week at times can be a great thing for me, or a couple of weeks, but it starts to at some point be too much of a stretch. And I feel like I've lost my tether to staying on point with things that help me make better choices. So number 2 tether for me is tracking. I will say that I will fully acknowledge, support, and celebrate the fact that these 2 tethers are not everyone's tethers. Some people weighing themselves regularly, even with work on mindset around it, is never going to be a good thing. For me, I used to be obsessed with the scale in a way that I made it mean a lot of things about who I was as a person and whether I was good or bad. And weighing myself more frequently actually helped me get free of some of those thoughts. But I understand for other people, those thoughts are not as easily freed. And so there are people that less frequent weighing or never weighing might be the better option. But I'm starting with my tethers today. Second one, weighing and measuring my food and tracking it. That is indeed, and I like to say, 90% of the time, right? Because every once in a while, there's going to be a day that I'm only guessing at what I was eating. And sometimes I'm like, I'm not even going to bother that day. I just will make the best choices that are available to me. That's totally fine. Doesn't get me off track at all. But when too much time has gone past and I find, why am I not tracking? Usually it's because there are things I don't want to acknowledge or confront about the way that I am eating. That's why I'm not tracking. Now, sometimes I might loosen one tether, sometimes I might loosen the other, but it tends to be bad news bears if I lose both of these tethers. And I have to say that since Thanksgiving, both of these tethers have been at best intermittent. And so the commitment to them was less. So by the holiday season, I just felt a little disconnected from the things that keep me saner around my food choices. So those are my two primary tethers in terms of tracking, right? Both of those are things I'm tracking. I'm tracking either my food or I'm tracking my weight. So alternatives that someone might do, right? If the scale is a big trigger for you, you could instead track a similar thing, like track your outcomes through a tape measure, measuring your body. You could do a pair of fitted pants, a belt, like just some way to keep track of what your body size or shape is doing, right? So it doesn't have to be weighing, it could be a different measure that gets to the same general end. In terms of if someone doesn't like tracking their food, alternatives to tracking your food might be just looking at your food choices, journaling about your food, making yourself a meal plan. So again, there are alternatives and you should choose your own tether. But I feel strongly that we all need some type of tethers to keep us anchored into being conscious and mindful. So those are two of my tethers in terms of keeping track of metrics. Some of my other important choices around food, and many of these I continue to do through this holiday season, but I'm just going to lay some of them out there so you can get an idea. I would call this section my food rules. So how do I choose foods that I'm going to include or exclude from my diet? The first thing I'd like to say is that 90% of the time I try and keep my food choices, within a certain range of choices, but I do allow myself a little freedom, like if I'm going out to a special dinner or a holiday celebration, that I can eat beyond some of these rules. But if that starts to become a regular thing, I have to reel myself back in because I'm just somebody that loves food so much. And if it's always just a constant outside my boundaries experience, well, then you don't have any boundaries. And boundaries for me are very important. So this is how I eat most of the time. And definitely by most of the time, I'm not saying like 51% of the time. I'm saying like more like 80 to 90% of the time. If it's a standard day where nothing special is going on, these are the rules that I live by. The first one is that I will eat 3 times a day and make sure that each one of those meals has at least 30 grams of protein, but usually more like 40 to 45 grams of protein. Every once in a while, one meal is 30, another meal is more like 50. They can trade off a little bit, but I draw the line no less than 30 grams of protein per meal. There are reasons for this. If you want to hear more about them in my protein video, which is coming soon. But the basics is that will optimize muscle protein synthesis in my body, which is an important rebuilding for my muscles and making sure I am a healthy middle-aged lady that becomes a healthy and strong older lady. And so that is very important to me. Now, you note I said 3 meals a day. There have been times when I ate 2 meals a day. These days, 3 meals a day works for me. Again, not being religious about anything in that if my day is crazy, maybe I had a doctor's appointment in the morning or a meeting in the afternoon, there are days where I eat 2 meals a day, 2 bigger meals to offset. But generally speaking, I'm going to be eating 3 meals. It works for my life, it works for my hunger, and it works for my goals. So my first food rule, 3 times a day. My second food rule, no less than 30 grams of protein per meal. My third food rule, I track and have goals for my calorie target for the day and my protein target for the day. I know how much protein I need to get in a day. And I know, depending on whether I'm trying to lose weight or maintain my weight at that time, what my calorie target is going to be for the day. And I eat to that plan, which means I plan my meals in advance and I confirm that I'm eating in those boundaries. There can be some fluctuation between the fat and the carbs. Some days I'm a little more fat, a little less carbs. Some days I'm a little more carb, less fat. But by tethering myself to the calories and the protein, everything works out in terms of my energy intake, and my weight will respond accordingly. Now, I do choose to live a lower carb life in terms of the choices I make. And primarily that will be because the next food rule is I make food choices that optimize my food intake in terms of volume. I'm not somebody with a raging metabolism that is struggling to eat enough. We know people like this, right? They're like, I can't keep weight on. I'm always, I'm never hungry enough for all this food I have to eat. This is not me. I am more like, could I please eat more? I would like to eat more. More food is better. Thank you very much. I like food, and my metabolism is very thrifty. It says we don't need much food. We are in disagreement. And so what I do is I choose higher volume foods. So when I choose carbs, I'm not generally choosing low satiety carbs. So bread and bagels and pasta, you get so little for those calories, not to mention all of the things we know about, wheat and various things that many of us choose not to eat. Now, is that to say that I would never ingest these things? I don't have significant issues with them when I do. I just know that they're almost always a losing proposition for me in terms of my hunger and my appetite. And so I will always, by always, I mean almost always, choose the higher volume, lower carb vegetables. So a big thing of cooked broccoli, spinach, cabbage, that's the word I was looking for. Those kinds of foods where you get just so much more bang for your carb and caloric buck. If you've ever, I have a picture, I'll put it on social media. I weighed out 50 calories and it was 10 grams of carbs, I think, 12 grams of carbs of pasta versus the same amount of carbs and calories of zucchini noodles. And one didn't even fill my palm of the pasta. The other one, I couldn't hold it in two hands grasped together, right? So I would like more. So I will take the better volume equation on that. So my carb choices are very nutrient dense, very voluminous, and much lower carb per inch. So that's what I come back to when I need to come back to center. I know my tethers. I know my practices that tether me: regular weighing, tracking and monitoring my food. I know how I make my choices around how I'm going to act and what food choices I'm going to make. I know about my macro tolerances. I know what I'm tracking around there. I know how I'm setting goals on there. I know what my food choice rules are. And I have a philosophy around how I make those choices about food quality, volume eating. So when I put all these things together, there's never any question for me about how will I get back on track. And these things are the types of things, by the way, because sometimes people want help with this, that I teach in Keto Unstuck, which is my program that begins the 15th of January. I almost said July, no, January. And we're going to be doing 8 weeks of really pinning these things down for people that need it and going above and beyond so that they can make better food choices, better macro choices, and create their own tethers that are going to keep them tied into their future self. So if you want some help creating these things for yourself and you feel a little lost, I just wanted to say that the program is there and enrollment is open if you're listening to this when this episode came out. If you're listening in the future, you can check in with me because we will run it again this year in 2023. But this is a program designed to unstuck anything about your keto experience, about your weight loss experience. If you feel like you've got this on your own, but you just need a little bit of a push, well, let this episode be that push. I've given you some examples of tethers and food rules. Now you can go and create your own that are going to keep you on the straight and narrow. So I will talk to you soon. There are lots of links in the notes for this episode, wherever you are listening to it or watching it. So go there if you need a link, and I will see you and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.